Hello everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mariama Forbes. Just gonna give a few minutes for people to come on, then we can start. Okay. I can see you, Joe. You're smiling. Hello, hi. I'm just gonna give a few minutes for people to come on. But anyway, my name is Mariama Forbes, and today we're going to be talking about a really, let's say, popular topic that a lot of people have been asking me about on my DMs. How is it like dating in West Africa, in comparison dating in abroad, or let's say UK, America. And today I'm joined by my good friend Joe from Authentic African. We're going to be talking about how dating is like. And he's going to be giving a male perspective, and I'm going to be giving a woman's perspective. So I'm going to bring him on while we wait for people to join.
What's up, Mariama?
Hi, Joe.
What's up? So maybe I should do a quick introduction, right?
Yes, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, cool. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joannis, or I also go by Joe Hatagwa. I am a Sierra Leonean American living in Accra, Ghana, but I do live back and forth between Accra, Ghana and Freetown, Sierra Leone. Born and raised in the US until I was about 36, and then I moved to the continent. So that is my story.
Yes. Okay. I'm so glad that you came and joined us and for us to do this together, because we've done a few videos together before about 10 things you need to know when you're coming to Africa and so on. And I felt like you were the perfect person for us to have this conversation, because I'm sure you've had many people message you and ask you about how dating is like in Africa and so on. And we gave you all the opportunities to send us questions as well. So we are going to be answering some of your questions. But at the same time, if you are on this live right now, you can also go ahead and send your questions right now as well about any question you might have about dating in Africa in general. But I think the best way for us to start off first is for me to just go ahead and just use you as a case study, Joe, because you came from you came from America, and you've lived in Sierra Leone, and you've lived in Ghana as well. And I really want to know what your dating experience has been like, in terms of like what you've thought about the African woman that's different in comparison to those that live abroad. So go ahead and give us an idea of, what the experience has been like for you.
Sure. So, I mean, it's been a broad experience. I would say that, I've been, so just to give everybody some context, I've been in Sierra Leone and Ghana since December 2020. So a little over a year and like 3 months. And so, I came here as a single person. And, I started the dating process like I do with any other new city that I moved to. I meet some people, meet them through other people, but I also started using dating apps here. And so,
what dating apps were you using?
That's a great question. So
I wasn't sure dating apps work in certain African countries. I won't say in Africa in general.
Well, okay. So the big thing about the dating apps, right? It's about supply and demand. So if there are people who are on them in those countries, then they work in those countries, right? It's really just about your general location. And so I would say Bumble, although it is available in Sierra Leone and Ghana, there is fewer people there. You can run out of people on Bumble, especially in Sierra Leone, because less people are aware of it. And then with Tinder, it's a little bit more.
Does Tinder work in Sierra Leone and Ghana?
It does in both countries, yeah.
Okay.
So Bumble does in both countries as well. Bumble is less popular than Tinder. I would say with both platforms, there are sex workers on all the platforms, right? So you do have to be careful.
Do they make it clear that they're sex workers, or do you kind of have an idea?
Some do, some don't. So you have to weed through it and understand that's what they're there for. And it depends on if that's what you're there for, right? I mean, that's what's
if that's what you're there for, we're not judging.
Yeah, right. So not for me necessarily. So I just had to learn to kind of weed through that. But yeah, I mean, that was really how I met, any person. Most of the people who I've dated, I've met through the dating apps. because I'm working like a crazy person every day, 7 days a week, no matter if I'm in Sierra Leone or if I'm in Ghana. So I don't get out a lot. And so, you know, that's been the way that I've been able to meet people. But my experience has been interesting. You know, I'll say most of my experience, I think, has been good, but it doesn't come without.
What was good about it?
You know, I would say that, you know, I don't have as hard of a time dating in West Africa as I do in the US, right? I think I'm more desirable here than I am in the US. And so it makes it a little easier.
Why would you say you're more desirable? Like, you know.
Yeah. So, well, I just use like stats and numbers to back that up. So on the apps, right, you know, in the US, right, like for every 10 swipe rights, maybe you get a couple people who swipe right on you, right? Here, I have way more who match with me that I match with than I did in the US. So the matching numbers are just higher. So the thing about like these dating apps is that you can look at the metrics, you can look at the numbers and just see your success rate. And so the matching is so much higher, right? And so I definitely have a higher match rate here in West Africa. But in terms of, so that makes it easier to at least get to the point of having a conversation and then deciding if you want to go down the path of meeting in person and then going from there. But in terms of where I maybe have had some challenges is just culturally, right? You know, some of the challenges that I've seen and I've had is in terms of, you know, people wanting to move faster than I move in terms of wanting to move in together, say, I love you, these kinds of things. You know, these are the areas where I've found challenges because that's not me. And that's something I discussed even on the first date and in my initial meeting. But that's something that comes up. And then the other thing too is the finances, right? The expectation, because it's so difficult to live here. And many women here don't have the ability to earn an income that is a livable income. The expectation is that the man pays for everything or many things. So, you know, what you have a lot is, you know, family members in school that they want you to pay for. They're helping their parents out and things like that. So it comes up a lot. The finances come up a lot. And so you just have to be prepared for that. You know, like you just definitely need to think if you're dating someone seriously, you need to think that you're going to have to budget for being able to help. So Pro Woman has a good question. You know Pro Woman? You know her? She's one of my subscribers. So the funny question,
Pro Woman.
What's up, Pro Women? So no, I'm not dating this Mariama, but I am dating a Mariama. So that's a
we're not dating. I know, Joe. You've told me people have asked you this question in Sierra Leone for dating because we've done a few videos together. But no, Joe and I are not dating. We're just really good friends, and we like to collaborate together.
Exactly, but I am dating a Mariama. So
it's just not me.
Just not Mariama Forbes. Yes, good question. Good question. I think a lot of people are asking that. And then my Instagram story might have made it a little confusing as well now that I just went back and looked at it. So I get that question. But yeah, so, you know, that's been, you know, one of the challenges that I've had and some of the good things that I've had. So, you know, it comes with its goods and it's maybe some challenges. But overall, you know, I think for me, especially dating, when I was dating diasporans here, you know, the thing that I found is that they're on the same page as me in terms of what they want out of life and what they care about, what they're passionate about.
Do you prefer like dating diasporian women in Africa, or do you prefer dating the local women? Like for you, which, like if you were to pick a preference, and why would you pick that preference?
Yeah, so not at the expense of upsetting anybody who I'm currently dating, I would say that initially I would have said that I would have preferred dating a diasporan just because we have a lot of the same viewpoints and understanding of the world because we come from, we've traveled and been elsewhere, right? We've gotten a chance, you know, most diasporans that I meet that move to the continent, they've lived or traveled around a lot of different places, right? That's how they decide to move here. They also move here with the decision and the want to be around people who look like them, having lived a lived experience in someone else's country, but then also in some ways wanting to help benefit and progress the current country that they're living in. And so there's a lot of synergies there. Whereas when I've dated locally or dating locally, one of the challenges is understanding the outside world, right? Most people here on the continent don't really leave their country. And so, or often, and so most of their viewpoints and their ideas are based on their experience in the country solely, and maybe sometimes meeting people who come from external. Whereas, you know, I've traveled the world and been a lot of different places and seen a lot of different things, and so that lived experience comes with me in my current dating experience. So I think that that's maybe some of the differences. But also with the locals, though, you have things that I never thought I wanted. I've now discovered are things that I like. So like I never thought that I needed someone to cook for me all the time, make sure I have food. Like I always,
but you're a man. I feel like every man expects a woman to cook for them. Like if you are a woman who's watching this and you agree with me, then please comment. If you're a man, if you disagree, comment as well. But I genuinely think that men believe that us women, we are created to, you know, cook for you guys. Like that's our main role. So for you to say that, I'm a bit surprised.
Well, yeah, I can't speak for everyone, right? And you know, I'm maybe a little bit on the margins for this because I'm basically the type of person that says like, I'm not going to ask you to do something I'm not willing to do, but if you want to do it, you can do it. That's always been my viewpoint. So, so what I was saying was, you know, I never expected that. I always expected to be able to pay someone to cook for me. So, you know, when I was in the US, I ordered food all the time. I never expected anyone to cook for me. And when I moved here, I have a housekeeper that cooks. So I've never been in a position where I require the women that I'm with to want to cook every day because I expect. Yeah, because I expect that she's working and she may be too tired to cook after she's working.
I think that's a really good thing we can branch into. But before we branch into it, let's possibly ask, let's just go through some of the questions that people have sent us. And then I think let's go back to that because that's a really good one for us to talk about the differences with African women in the continent in comparison to those that live abroad. But so Joe and I got some questions that have been sent to us, and we're just going to go through them right now. Okay. So I'm just going to read some of them out. Just know while you are on this live as well, if you have any questions about dating, relationships, marriage, the culture, anything like that when it comes to Africa or the West, then please go in the comment section and put it there. We just had Jose. Hi, Jose.
That's Jose Cruz.
Hello.
What's up, Jose? What's up, Jose? That's Jose Cruz. He's he found out he was Sierra Leone last year. What's up, Jose? Shout out.
All right, so I'm just gonna read some of the questions, like one of the questions that's been sent to us, and then also as well, if you're in the comment section, you can go ahead and leave your and put some questions and respond. Sorry to the questions that I'm gonna read. So the first question we got here is, why do American Western men automatically start comparing American Western women to African women without going into a conversation about preferences? It's so divisive and annoying and quite ignorant.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think I remember who wrote that. By the way, what's up, No Narrative? I see you on. So
hey, No Narrative.
Yeah. So this is a great question, and this came from, I think this might have came from No Narrative actually. So that question is an interesting one, and you know, I wanted to start by saying what we do as people is we compare, right? That's just what we do. Naturally, we compare, right? If you think about musicians, right? You think about athletes, you always compare this great with a previous great, right? That's always how it happens. Who we are as people, because we use something as a frame of reference to look at something else. And so what happens a lot is people do that. I think where they go wrong is when people do comparisons, they speak about one thing better than the other.
Then they do the other one, yes.
Yeah, they talk down on one other side when they're speaking up of another side. And so that's why when I discuss things, I always talk about the pros and cons of both. right? Or I try to speak about my experience with both without making one seem better than the other. It's just my experience, because in the end, they do have their pros and cons, either one. There definitely isn't one better than the other, in my opinion. It's all dependent on your preference and your experience.
Exactly.
So yeah, for me, that's how I approach it. But yeah, I think that's probably why people do it. And I think we need to do a better job of when we're having these discussions with people to make sure that they do that. There's some other questions coming up about this, by the way. I
Yeah.
don't know if you
Okay.
see.
We're seeing some questions. I think we're gonna go to the question topic, and I'm gonna go to the first. I think.
The way showers walkabouts was the most recent one. You scroll up a little bit.
Okay, let's just go for this 1 second. So Joe's crew says thoughts on how you could get a Western spouse to get on board with a second wife. Whoa! Now that is a tough one.
Okay, so by the way, it's Jose Cruz.
Cruz. I apologize. Sorry about that.
Yes. So Jose said thoughts on how you could get your Western spouse to get on board with a second wife. So Jose, here's the challenge with that. All right. We have 500 years of monogamy as part of the Western world, right? So it's very hard to get anyone to do something that's very different from their expectation. I think most people even think that monogamy has been a natural human thing since the beginning of time. Most people don't know that monogamy has only been a part of the natural order for the larger group of humans for 500 years. Yeah. So you're already trying to change people's viewpoints from their great grandparents going all the way back before they were even on the continent that they're in, before they spoke the language that they speak, right? So changing that behavior is very difficult to do for people who just do not believe that that's even a normal way to live. So if that is something that you want, you're going to have to be looking in those circles where those people are. And that's not generally in the general dating space. It's not even something that is as popular in West Africa as most people would believe. I think a lot of people who
I was just about to say, like, a lot of people believe that in Africa, every woman is okay with having a second wife and so on. But the reality is not a lot of people actually believe in that. And also advice I'd give to you personally is that if you want a second wife, for example, if that's something that you truly want, you don't want to go outside of your relationship, is you need to ask yourself, is this for you? Is this relationship really for you? Because I know with most Western people, their Western belief is very strong, which is I want to be with one man or one woman, and that's really it. However, we are seeing a large group of people who now believe in polygamy, who are okay with having multiple partners and being married and all these different things. So they are out there. There's actually apps, I believe, for people who believe in that. So you can find apps and all these different things as well. And, if you're not already married, find somebody who is okay with that.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, it's like I was saying, like the millennials and Gen Zs here in West Africa are definitely not as into the idea of plural marriage. What you will see from time to time is people who don't believe that men can be monogamous. So sometimes you'll find people that are just. So sometimes you'll just find some.
I believe in that.
Yeah. So sometimes you'll just find some people that will say, "Don't embarrass me," or something like that, as opposed to forcing you to be monogamous. But plural marriage is not as widespread as you might think, especially if you meet someone from a major city here. It's very unlikely in this day and age that they'll go along with it.
Yeah. So we got another question from Shirley Sleffer. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your surname wrong. And she said, what is the chance of a success with distance and cultural differences between Western and African relationship? Okay, I'll start off by saying is that in general, long distance relationship is one of the hardest relationships you will do, regardless of wherever you are. However, in my circle, I've seen a lot of successful relationships with husbands who may be living in Africa, wives who are living abroad, and they've had successful relationships. I personally have seen it. However, the only thing that you have to think about that is, are people being faithful? Are they being genuine? Are they not sneaking behind your back? It is a difficult thing, but I've seen it happen. But but can I put my hands up and say these people are faithful in their relationship? Unfortunately, I don't know that. But in general, I think long distance relations are very hard, but it's not uncommon in Africa for partners to be living in different countries. Like I've seen it happen so many times where the wife will be living in Africa and the husband is living abroad. Like it's not something that is shocking. But yeah, Joe, go ahead. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like, so there's two parts to this, right? You're talking about the cultural differences, and you're also talking about distance. So first thing, distance. It's very difficult to have a
Sorry,
successful
Joe, 1 second. So just 1 second. Success Johnson just said, how do you send your questions? All you need to do is just write down your questions, just like how you've just done, and we'll answer it. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so oh yes, so the first part is distance. So when it comes to distance, the hardest thing to do is have a long distance relationship, because there has to be a trust factor there more than when you're in the same city. There's also challenges with communication, and when you're not seeing each other, there's so many different elements that come into play when you're having a long distance relationship. So you have to have a strong foundation, and you have to find a way to see each other as often as possible and agree to how the terms of your long distance relationship is going to be. And that might be difficult when you have cultural differences. So speaking of cultural differences, this is where there are also potentially other challenges, right? So, from my experience, I think especially when it's a man from the West dating a woman from West Africa, at least Ghana and Sierra Leone, one of the challenges that I find is their want and need to move much faster than the way we move, in terms of wanting to say I love you, wanting to move in together, wanting to be ready for marriage, and pursuing that almost immediately, right? Because culturally, right, in the West, right, you want to get your finances in order, especially Generation Z, millennials, right? The way we're moving is getting our finances in order before we move forward with a long-term serious relationship, marriage, and children, and things of that nature, happening at higher rates. Here, there are groups of people that are waiting till they get older, but there's still the thought process of, once I hit 30 as a woman, like I'm too old to not have children, right? And the idea is that you hear that all the time around you, your aunts, your parents, your friends, that is the way a lot of people think here. And so that's where sometimes there's some clashes there. But I think it's just communication is the most important thing. Is communicating at all levels and as early and as often as possible. And that, I think, tends to eliminate some of the challenges that come along with distance and cultural differences.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely say that as well. And I think, just to add on to what you've just said regarding the way certain African countries or young people may see marriage, I think, like, even me and Joe, we've discussed this, where it's like to them, like for us in the West, we see success as the ultimate thing, like your career, getting all these things together. Like one of the things I noticed in Sierra Leone, like for them, what their trophy is having children and getting married. Like that's the most, to them, that is the most important thing. Even if they may not have money, they may not have their career together, or even things to be able to take care of a child, they will still have children, because for them that's the most important thing. And so some of their mindset sometimes is, we will work it out as we go on. What would you say regarding what I've just said, Jay?
Yeah, I agree. That's a big thing here, is having children and being married. But the big thing I hear is having children. The big thing is having children. So I see that men a lot here. The big thing is that's the thing that they want most, is having children, because there's just a strong belief that, keeping the family legacy alive, keeping the family name, growing the family is part of your duty. And if you don't do that early on, there's something wrong with you, or there's an issue, right? And that's what you find a lot in cultures where family is an important part of how we do things. And that's just how it is in West Africa, right? It takes a village. All of that still applies here. And it's not like how in the West, where, your neighbor, you may not even know your neighbor's name. It's not like that here, right? It's family, tribe, country, right? And it's all of that. Whereas in the US, people live in silos, right? It's not the same. So I think that that's a major difference, and a big part of that is growing that family, and that's where it comes up a lot. So yeah, that's something I would definitely say is the case. So that's a difference for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So we got a question from Sarata Sise. Thank you for your question. She says, "Are the men in Sierra Leone genuine with relationships?" So you can go with that, Joe, and then after you, I'm gonna go ahead and give my response.
Okay, so I will say this, right? You know, relationships, there is no idea of like dating and not being in a relationship. Very few times you find that people are just dating and then trying to get to each other, to get to know each other before moving into a relationship, right? If you are hanging out, you're in a relationship, your boyfriend and girlfriend, and it can happen after one date, right? And so that actually happens with men and women, which is why a lot of times as a man from the West, it's a little bit more challenging sometimes when you come here. And so I would say that that is the case. However, culturally, because we have formerly polygamous society in a lot of ways, and culturally, you just see a lot of people in situations where they are allowed or tend to just have extras, girlfriends on the side, et cetera, et cetera. What you find is that does happen pretty frequently here, and it's a big part of like it's part of the discussion amongst friends. What I find a lot of times though is in the relationships they don't talk about it to each other, but it's kind of it's a lot of times it's kind of a known thing. So I mean so yes, they're genuine from my understanding and from what I've seen, and I have friends that are born and raised in Sierra Leone for sure. And I also do have, by the way, I do have faithful friends that are Sierra Leonean men. I actually have one that just got engaged, and I see how he handles this thing. And, you know, it's not easy, but, you know, he's a faithful person. And, but it's just culturally, it's been kind of a thing, at least in the two countries that I've lived in, where you can kind of have a girlfriend on the side and things like that. And even some women have boyfriends on the side, or extra guys who, you know, what I've seen too is, and speaking of, I gotta do both sides of the argument. I've seen some women here, and sometimes they do it in the US too, where they'll have a guy who's maybe a little bit more well off and who can maybe finance a lifestyle and things like that. But then they actually have the boyfriend that they love who's just not there yet financially, right? And so, you know, because it's so difficult here and money is hard to come by, you from time to time see that as well. So they can both be genuine, but, you know, out of either human nature for the men or out of necessity for the women, you might find people who maybe stray a little bit from their relationship.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, for me, my response to your question is regardless of where you are in the world, just always practice caution when you're dating in an environment that you have not dated before. Okay. And specifically talking about Sierra Leone men, from what I have seen while I was there and what my friends have told me and so on, what I can definitely say is that when you're coming in as a diasporian, you are going to be like the hot topic in a sense, meaning you're gonna have a lot of guys who are gonna come to you. They're gonna want you, and the men in general, they're very quick to say I love you. They're very quick to say they want to marry you. They're very quick to move the relationship very quickly. Like I think in the West, you know, we take our time a bit more, want to get to know people, want to date, but the culture that I've seen there is things happen very quickly. Now the question at hand, which you say is, are you genuine? You're gonna find men who are not genuine. You're gonna have some men who may have, you know, who may necessarily not be honest, and you are going to meet some guys who are genuinely genuine. However, there is a high level of men in Sierra Leone who will see you as a diasporan, and they see you as a ticket to go to the West. So they may come onto you very hard, and they want to marry you very quickly. They want to date you very quickly. They want to say I love you very quickly, and their motive may be just for you to marry them and take them abroad. And then you may meet ones like how the ones that Joe and I know, who genuinely fall in love with you, who want to build with you, and they tend to take things a bit slowly. Like they want to get to know you. They want to, you know, one thing I would just say is just move smart, assess the situation, take your time. Don't allow anybody to rush you. If you are dating somebody in the continent, just take your time. Just the same practice you practice in the West, practice it in the continent as well. Because at the end of the day, humans are humans. We're all the same, regardless of what continent we're in. There's some people who are genuine. There's some people who are just not genuine at all. And you just have to go there with all your eyes open, be very wise, and just be very cautious. That's what I'll definitely say. Okay, so let's go on. Let's see if there's any more questions here. That we might have seen. Okay, careful, Joe. We got no RR TV. Just got back in from a bike ride. Hey guys, hello. So I'm just gonna go to some of the questions that have been sent to us, Joe. So I'm gonna read them out. Okay. So the question is it easier as an American Western person to date an African living and or traveling back forth from the West to Africa, or an African who has never traveled, and why? So I think what she's trying to say is it easier for you to date somebody who has been to the West or has been a bit influenced in comparison to someone that's never visited the West? What would your response to that be, Jay?
Yeah, so I would say I think it is a little easier because you tend, and I mentioned this a little bit before, right? But you tend to have a little bit more in common, right? Just because you probably made the decision to move to West Africa for the same reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what you'll find is that the conversations might flow a little easier. You might have a similar lived experience, right? And so it makes it a little easier to communicate. It makes it a little easier to communicate when you have that similar lived experience. When you're dating someone locally, where you find some challenges is in the differences in their lived experience, right? So I think that's probably where I would say the biggest differences is between those two. So it's a little easier, but it doesn't mean it's better, right? It's just different, right? So that would be what I would say for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, what I would personally say is, because I've had conversations with guys in Sierra Leone, is that don't be afraid to talk to a local or get to know a local, because they are just as wise, just as smart, just as intelligent, and so on. And talking to them is going to be just the same as you talking to somebody that is from the West. But the only difference is if you're going to talk to a guy that's never traveled before, the conversation may not be the same. You may not have as much things in common because they haven't experienced the Western world. So you may have to kind of like, as you're getting to know them, kind of just like almost hold their hand and kind of explain to them why you think this way or why you may do things this way. Whereas if you were dating somebody that already been to the West, things can kind of flow, just like what Joe has said. But that is definitely what I would say to that question. Is there anything else you'd want to add, Joe?
No, I think that you covered it. I mean, that's really it. I mean, it's just like anything else, right? If you date, like, that's why. Okay, so here's an example. Actually, I do have one more thing to add. So they say something like, I can't remember what the percentage is. I'm not gonna, don't get me to lying on percentages, but some percentage higher than 50% of marriages happen in the workplace because there's so many things in common. You have a lot of things already in common. And a lot of them also happen in universities too, or at least you meet long-term relationships in universities as well. And that happens because you're all the same wavelength. You have a lot of things in common. So I think that just of course is going to make things easier if you have more things in common. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's better though. I'm always going to go back to that. It's just different. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's better.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with that. Okay, so the next question says, I'm a Ghanaian and my girlfriend is from Sierra Leone. What should I consider before visiting? It's a good one, right?
So, yeah, that's a good one, and I remember that question. So I think the big thing about visiting Sierra Leone, if you're a Ghanaian, is understanding that there are many cultural differences, right? Ghanaians are very big on please and politeness, and there's like an idea of high society and prim and properness, right? Is what you see a lot in Ghana. Sierra Leone is a little bit more rough and rugged, you know what I'm saying? And it's a little bit more like, we're hustlers. We move with speed, and well, for the most part, we move with speed. We want something done, and we don't necessarily stand in line. When we negotiate with aggression, right? We're a little bit more of an aggressive society in Sierra Leone. So I think for you, maybe when you go to Sierra Leone, you just have to be prepared for that. There are some similarities just in terms of the challenges that all of West African countries are having with finances and things like that, but culturally there are some differences. Her family might be a little different from your family, right? Your family might be like all those things that I said. Her family might be a little bit more blunt in their communication, right? And so I think you just might have to be a little bit more weary and prepared for that. Also, our pidgin, men and women speak Creole in Sierra Leone. In Ghana, it's kind of seen as like low-class speech to speak pidgin in Ghana, right? In Sierra Leone, it's actually weird for people not to speak Creole. So, those are just some of the differences, the things you need to think about. But outside of that, I mean, the thing is that you're already married, right? He said he's married to her?
No, I think he says his girlfriend. He's going to meet her for the first time in Sierra Leone.
Okay. Yeah, so you're already dating her. So you already have a little bit of an idea of the culture and society. I think she'll be able to help indoctrinate you and help you navigate because really, it's really going to be based on your experience with her family. And so that's the thing that you're going to need to understand. So you need to sit down and talk to her about what's her father like, what's her mother like, what her siblings like, what do you need to think about when you're talking and communicating with them? What do you need to know? That's really what's going to be most important. When you get to the country, she's going to help you navigate. And that's not going to be too difficult because you're with her and this is where she's from. But yeah, I think you're definitely going to need to have that conversation with her about her family because people can be a little bit more blunt here. Whereas I think in Ghana, from my understanding and from what I've seen, a lot of times it's what's not said. And you have to try to decipher what's not being said. Whereas in Sierra Leone, it can be a little bit more blunt with their communication, or with our communication, I should say. So.
Yes, I definitely agree. Just to add on to what you've just said as well is that, when you're going into Sierra Leone, be aware that Sierra Leone has one of the most friendliest people when you go there. So when you go there, you're definitely going to have fun. You're probably not going to want to go back to Ghana. I've never been to Ghana, but Sierra Leone for me is one of the most liveliest, friendliest country you can think of. She's definitely is going to be, she's going to try and take care of you and so on. But I definitely would say for yourself is practice caution. Even if you've never met her before, I'll definitely say to you, maybe book a hotel and stay there. Rather than maybe go to her place or anything like that. Just practice safety at the end of the day. But definitely when you come to Sierra Leone, you're gonna enjoy, you're gonna have a good time. Sierra Leone women in general, we're very jovial, we're very fun, we're very exciting women. We're women where we're just really fun to be around. So you might end up going and you might end up not coming back to Ghana. That is definitely something I would say. You might not end up coming back, but definitely you're going to end up having a great time in Sierra Leone. So yeah, pack your bags and come. Sugar Mammy of Freetown. Thank you, girl. She says, well done. So proud of you. Thank you. We also have Takrisha McClearmum who says, yes, sis, I agree. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to go to the other questions now. I'm just going to read them out. Okay, how do you know when a local African woman you've met is a ride or die, a potential wife? Oh, this is... I'm going to send that straight to you, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good one. And also, Precious Hannah. What's up, Hannah? You asked another good question too. I just saw that. We'll get to that in a second. But so the question before this one though, and it's kind of along the same line. So it's a little different. So how do you know if she's ride or die? It's really hard to know if anyone is ride or die. But here is how I determine how to move forward with someone. I am open and honest with everything from the first conversation I have with her, the first date. On my first date, I express that I don't part ways with my money. I don't.
Okay, Joe.
If I
Okay,
really, if I know you and I care about you and we are in a situation and I have the finances, I have no problem, right? But I'm never going to pay for someone's affection. So that's that. I get that out of the way from the beginning. So that's number one. So that helps me because that weeds a lot of people out. Like, of course, because here that's such an important part of dating. They have to be willing to date me with that understanding that. So I think that's the first thing. I think another way to find out is to see how they deal with you around their friends.
Mm.
You know, how people are with you one on one is different from how people deal with their friends, right? And understanding and learning more about their previous relationships.
Mm.
Why didn't they work out? What happened in those previous relationships that didn't have them work out? And then just that's how you really get to know a person. Now, when it comes to ride or die, the only thing beyond that, that's like where you can find all the red flags first. But the only thing beyond that is time, right? Only time will tell whether someone is quote unquote ride or die, right? If you have hard times, if you have good times, and they're there for both, then that's how you determine whether they are or not ride or die. So again, it's checking for those red flags in the beginning and being very open and honest and clear and making declarative statements in the very beginning to see how they decide to move forward. And then beyond that is just taking your time, and over time, people's true colors always tend to show. So that is my answer to that question.
I agree with everything that Joe had just said. And if you are here listening right now, write that down as notes, make it as a mental note. And just to add on to what Joe has just said, is it's true. Just use your common sense and also take your time. And also, one thing I would say is silent women in Sierra Leone are very sweet with their words. You know what I'm trying to say? They can sugarcoat, sweeten you up very good. And what Joe has just said is true. You need to be very clear in the beginning about what you want and what you're not willing to do. Because the culture in Sierra Leone, for example, and in most West African countries, is the man takes care of the woman. So they're going to expect you to basically finance everything. Like, you may just start dating a woman and she will start telling you, oh, I need to eat. Oh, I need to get my hair done. Oh, I need clothes. I need this. And if you know you're not that kind of guy from the beginning, do let her know that you're not going to be able to finance her life. And also, number one, keep your eyes on the red flags, because guess what? Somebody cannot pretend forever. At one point, you are going to see their true colors. And I think what Joe said about you being around their friends. But let me just say something, which I really want to say this, and the reason why I want to say this is because I feel like I also want you guys to leave this live with your eyes fully open. And one of the things I noticed, I saw that was going on specifically in Sierra Leone, was that sometimes a guy and a girl will be in a relationship, and when they meet a diasporian, let's say a diasporian man is interested in the girlfriend, the man and the woman will create an understanding, which is, I'm going to allow you to date this diasporian guy because if you date him, he may marry you and take you back home. Sometimes these things happen. You know what I mean? Where the woman fully knows she's in a relationship. The man knows he's also in a relationship, but they're having an agreement. So this can happen with the man or the woman, vice versa. So you need to be aware of this. So the only way you are going to know 100% if that person is not already married or in a relationship is time. And also ask around, and don't trust what their family say. Sometimes the family themselves will lie with them because they see you as a ticket to go abroad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to keep it real here, because at the end of the day, the truth needs to be said. Things like this happen. I've seen it. I've heard of things like this happening. However, this does not mean this is happening overall, that everybody's doing this in Africa. This is just to say these are some of the things I noticed in Sierra Leone specifically. Okay. So don't be afraid or anything like that, but just be cautious. Just know that you have to practice extra caution and you have to do your research. Don't just meet somebody and be like, oh my God, I'm in love. I want to marry them. I want to be with them. These are human beings, regardless of what continent they're in. They are human beings. They are going to have their own perspective, their own need. They're going to play you. They're going to lie to you. They're going to be honest. They're going to love you. Just expect the unexpected at all times. That's what I would add to that as well. Is there anything else you'd add, Joe?
No, I think we both covered it. I'm just these questions. I'm just looking at the questions as they come, and I'm thinking about my answers to them.
I'm just going to put this one here.
Oh, let's go back to Precious Hannah before we go to Keisha.
So what did you say?
Let's go to Precious Hannah before
yes, you said, yeah, that's true. Yeah, sorry, my bad. So Precious Hannah said, hey, Joe, what's the difference between Ghanaian and Sierra Leonean women? So this is for you, Joe. I can't speak on this.
Yeah. So, so the difference. So I would say that in Ghana, generally outwardly, overall, there's definitely people on the margins for sure, but Ghanaian women tend to be more conservative, right? There's a level of like conservatism that's here in Ghana because the country is more conservative, right? Nothing opens before 1 p.m. on Sunday because everybody's in church, and that's everybody, like everybody's in church. So if you're Christian, and it's mostly a Christian country. So so that's probably the major difference. Also, too, obviously, in terms of communication, right? Local, I've met many local Sierra Leonean women and many local Ghanaian women, and I would say in Ghana they view speaking English much higher than I've met in terms of local Sierra Leonean women. For them, you know, I think many local Sierra Leonean women learn English in school, but don't practice it as often because a lot of places in Sierra Leone, you can just speak Creole and there's no need to have to speak English. Whereas in Ghana, they might speak Tree or another language, but they definitely speak English. And that's definitely held in a higher regard. Not better, just different, right? And so those are some of the major differences. I would say that there are some similarities, though, in terms of speed and wanting to move forward with like marriage and having children, right? That culturally to me has been similar in my discussions and in my dating life. For sure, I've definitely seen that as a similarity. But the differences I don't think are more than just that. It's like the language, but mostly all other things seem to be very similar. I mean, it's difficult to live in Ghana as it is to live in Sierra Leone. And so the finances thing comes up, which I think is a good segue into Keisha's question about the finances. I don't know if we want to jump to Keisha's question next. Is it just me or I can't hear you? Are you on mute? Or maybe it's my end.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was on mute there. I apologize. So Takesha's question is, Joe, if you ask a woman out on a date, will you pay for her? I'm not sure about your statement regarding not parting with your money. Go on, Joe, explain yourself.
Yeah. So don't misunderstand me. I mean, I know that we live in 2020, but of course I'm going to pay for the date, right? If I'm asking someone out on a date, even if she says she wants to go on a date together and I agree to it, just because, you know, although we live in a different world now and there are some different things in terms of working on equality, at the end of the day, this is how most people live and how most people expect things to go. So of course I'm paying for the date, and of course I'm giving her transport to get home, right? Or paying for her transport to get home. Just like when I was in the US, I'd pay for an Uber to pick her up from her house to come meet me for a date. I do still pay for transport to go home when I go on dates. So yeah, don't misunderstand me. I don't do the 50-50 thing on dates. Now, if we've been dating for an extended period of time and I know you have the finances, when we go out, it'd be nice from time to time if you treat me. But I'm not talking about like, you know, the majority of the dates are going to be paid for by me. And that's just because I know that I have the majority of the finances. So I wouldn't expect that. No. So yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm glad that it posed, like it started a conversation. You guys should have waited to ask me first and to hear what I said first. But it's interesting that no. When I say I'm not going to part ways with my money, let me also be more specific about that. What I mean by that is this. So when you date here, okay, for instance, I went on a date with a young lady and we went on like 2 dates. And that week she mentioned that she was moving into a new apartment. And she mentioned that her apartment was, what was it? It was 25 million leones, right? For the year, $2,500, right? 25 million leones. And she only had 17 million leones or something like that. So that meant that there was a difference in $800 that she needed for her apartment. And she was upset that I was not willing to pay that $800 difference when I just met her that week and we had only gone on 2 dates, even though on the first day I mentioned that I don't do that. And so this is the thing that I'm talking about is understanding that the expectation that beyond, like, look, if we were dating and like this is someone that I've been with for a period of time, and obviously I need to make sure that she has her housing and everything like that, of course I'm going to help her out with whatever I can. But if we just met that week, I'm not paying $800 for your rent. That's crazy. So that's what I mean. I guess I should have given that context, because I think these questions are coming from a Western point of view. And so you may not have ever asked a crazy question like that to someone, like, hey, can you pay my rent? Or maybe you have, I don't know. But so that might be why you guys are thinking I'm talking about 50-50. But what I'm really speaking about is the requests that come in. Beyond that too, I've been asked to pay school fees. I've been asked to pay school fees. I've been asked to pay hospital bills. Within like 1 month of dating someone, 2 weeks of dating someone, the requests for finances start coming in. I'm in modeling school and I need shoes for modeling. I need, like all these different things that have come up. And like, this is within, like I said, within less than a month. So I just want to be very clear. When I'm saying I'm not parting ways with my finances, I'm speaking to that and those kinds of requests, because those requests come more often than not. By the way, I just mentioned 4 different circumstances, and they were all different women, right? Which is why the dating scenarios with them ended at that point in time, right? Because if we had the conversation on the first date that that's not how I move, and then they still are making those requests anyway, clearly that was one of those red flags, right? So I moved on. So I hope that answers those questions for you ladies. So that I'm not saying like we go on a date, let's do Dutch, and I'm saying like you pay half of the date. I'm not saying that. It's speaking more specifically to those kinds of things.
Yeah, and she just responded back. Takesha responded back by saying, understandably, Joe, you should not pay for someone's expenses if you just met them weeks ago. I'm only speaking of a long-term relationship completely. And I just want to add on to that. I know that question was more towards Joe from a male perspective, but I just want to also add on to why Joe is saying what he's saying. For many of you who may have not gone to Sierra Leone or have gone to West African countries or visited an African country in general, is that in most African countries, the culture is for a man to take care of a woman. And also most of the women in West Africa, I'm going to speak specifically, their love language is receiving gifts, and those gifts is money. And for them, sometimes when a man is courting you, a way for him to show that he's interested or he loves you or he likes you is that he spends money on you. So from the beginning, they are already taking all of their expenses and expect you to start taking care of it. So that's things like their hair, that's things like going shopping, that's things like giving them a little bit of money to take care of. It's very normal. That is their love language. And sometimes in some African countries, if a man is not willing to take care of a woman from in the first instance of them dating, he can show that he can take care of her. They are not interested in you. However, as I said, this is not every single woman that expects this. However, the culture is that. So that's why Joe is basically saying that in the beginning, I'm going to let this woman know that I don't believe in that culture, and I'm not going to start taking care of those things from the beginning, because that is not what I believe in. And if you're a man who you're watching this, is you, just like what Joe said previously, you need to be a bit more stern, and you need to let them know from the beginning, this is what I believe in. If you don't believe in it, then jog on.
Yeah. And I will say, I do also say, like, if we are together and I see value in this, then I'm willing to invest in this, right? So, like if I'm dating someone seriously, I have no problem paying for her to get her hair done, her nails done, whatever, especially considering if I'm dating someone locally, right? When I was in the US, I was a little bit less likely to do that until like we were really, really dating a long time, because most of the women that I dated were making a good enough income where they could pay it on their own. I think it's just something that I think is really important to know, that it's with time I make that determination, because again, if we're talking about ride or die and we're trying to determine if someone is there for you and not for your finances, then I need to make sure that they are really there for that. And the only way you can see that is over time. So I do invest in that way, especially when the finances are there. So whenever I can, I do help for sure. Great
Yeah,
question though.
definitely keep writing your questions in the comment section. Any question you might have, no question is silly, no question is too much, so definitely do go ahead and send us your questions. Okay, Joe, the next question we've got is regarding dowry. It says, what are the cultural norms dowry, if there is one, religious practice, expectations, family obligations, their approach to finances? Okay, that's quite a lot of questions, so I think we can start off first with dowry. Do you have, I know we spoke about this, do you have anything you'd like to add regarding dowry, or do you want me to take this one?
I mean, I'll briefly touch on it, then I'll turn it over to you, since you have more experience and you've had like direct communication with people on this. I think that the idea of a dowry in Sierra Leone has evolved over time, and there's always a version of it. But I think it's not like what it used to be. So, I think it varies on tribe and it varies on family. But yeah, I think it's something that is definitely it's evolved and it's changed over time. I have not personally encountered this yet because I haven't taken that step. So I don't have a lot of insight
We're
into this.
waiting for you to take that step, Joe.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll leave it at that. But I'll turn it over to you to talk about what your thoughts are on this. Maybe you might have more insights.
Okay, so in regards to dowry, I would definitely say one of the things I would say is that it depends on culture to culture. So I've had conversations with my grandmother a few times regarding dowry, and one of the things she's always said to me is that culturally, dowry wasn't an exchange of money, it was an exchange of goods. So it was the most important thing that you have to give is kola nut, and also give like certain clothes items and food items and stuff like that. She says culturally, those were the things that a man had to give before he marries a woman. Also, he had to have a house to put her in. If the man does not have a house to put her in, culturally, he was not allowed to marry that woman. He had to prove that he's able to give her the same lifestyle that her father gave her, because back then they believed it's the man that owns the woman, and he passes the woman on to another man to take control of her. So that's what it was. And as time came on, it evolved to money, where it was now an exchange of goods and money. However, this depends, just like what Joe has said, to do with tribe. Certain tribes, you have to give money. They would tell you exactly how much money you have to give. Some tribes would just say, you know what, actually, just give us the kola nut, just give us the goods, that's it. And then you also have to look at individuals. Individuals, different families may have completely different mindset, where they may say to you, actually, no, we don't need you to give us anything. We would just want you to pay for the marriage, for an example. So I definitely would say in many African countries, dowry has evolved. However, you may marry into a family where they're very strict on dowry, where they'll expect you to pay 1,000, 10,000, like quite a lot of money to marry that woman, whereas some may not. But definitely what I would say to you is, if you are with somebody and they are asking you about dowry, is ask them, just be open with them, tell them, what is your family's expectations if I were to marry you? Then you can decide if that person is for you or not. Is anything else you want to add to that, Joe?
No, I think you covered it. I think you covered it. That's you have more insight on this than I do. So yeah.
Definitely, if you want to know more questions regarding dowry, just write it down in the comment section, or you can send me a DM by going to my Instagram, which is Mariama Forbes. Okay, so then the next one was talking about cultural expectations. Okay, so I'll start off with that. Cultural expectations is that, from us who are Westerners who are going into Africa, is people are very strong in their culture in general, depending on what family you're going into. There's not just culture, there's tribes, there's overall culture of the country, then you have tribes. Every tribe has their own expectations for when you are coming into the family, how they want you to be like. Like, for example, if you wanted to marry a Muslim woman, for example, her father would expect for you to convert into a Muslim and to practice the way they practice things in their culture. So again, it's individualistic. So sometimes they will expect a lot for you. Sometimes they won't. But overall, what I would say the overall culture is there is lots of high expectations when you're dating an African woman. Their fathers expect you to come not empty-handed. They will not give their daughters to you if you cannot take care of them. They expect you to be the man of the household. They expect you to take care of the woman, because some of their belief is a bit old school, is a bit traditional, and the woman is going to look to you as the head, as the man to take care of her, and so on. However, you know, we just got a question here from Shirley, who says, I have a friend who financially supports a man in West Africa. Is that normal? Oh, Joe, go ahead. You go ahead and answer that question first, and I'll go.
Yeah, I just spilled some water, so if you guys see me looking down, I'm like, okay. So yes, that happens from time to time. So what you find is, just like we were talking about, sometimes there are women who are looking for that financial support. There are definitely some men here who have those same challenges finding an income, who also are looking for that same financial support. And so that was a little bit to what Mariama was talking about a little earlier, when you have to be careful when dating, right? Coming from the West, especially when you have like an income from the West, right? Because there are people from time to time who are looking to take advantage of someone who has those finances and can pay for their lifestyle, right? So that happens. Now, some people do it willingly and they're just happy to do it. And maybe that person from West Africa was not looking for that from them. But most of the time when that happens, it's because the person from West Africa found out that they can make that happen with that person, and they're now enjoying the fruits of someone else's labor. So you do have to be careful with that. It does happen from time to time. It happens mostly when you see white women with West African men. That's where I see it happening in terms of women paying for men's lifestyles. Is mostly when I see the Caucasian women and the African men. That's where I've seen it. And yeah, I would say I'm just gonna leave it at that. You know, it's done a lot of times out of necessity, but I definitely have seen it. And you can even see it on shows like 90 Day Fiance, right? It's not just something that happens in West Africa. It happens all around the world. But you have people who might be more financially stable from the West. And when they come to West Africa, they're looking for someone to love them. They might have been divorced previously, maybe have some children, and they're looking for love from someone else, and they'll find that, right? Because this person's going to tell you, I love you right away, and is going to give you all the attention and tell you how much they love you. But they might also tell you their sob story. You know, I got school fees and whatever else I need to pay for. And so that does happen. I don't know if it's normal, but it definitely happens. It definitely happens. And you can tell when you look at couples. Like, you can look at a couple and just see it, especially when there's maybe a white or Caucasian woman and an African man. You could see it from time to time between the two, that's likely what's happening.
Yeah, and I'll definitely add to what Joe has said. Is true. It's we won't say it's normal, but it's definitely common. You definitely see it happening. And yeah, it happens with men and it happens with women as well. If you find yourself in that situation, like, one advice I'll definitely give is, you don't want to be in a position when all you're doing is just giving money to that person. Why are you giving money to that person? Is it a joint plan that's going to get you guys to where you want to get to? Or are you just giving money to finance that person's lifestyle? So if you meet somebody in Africa, or you are dating somebody in Africa, is they were living before you. So therefore, they shouldn't really depend on you, unless you guys are planning towards a goal where, for example, let's say you're dating them and you're planning to move back to Africa to live together. So you're going to send money to build a house or whatever it may be. Or maybe you want to start a business together. So you're sending your money for you guys to start a business. But come on, guys, we've seen 90 Days of Fiancé. We've watched Catfish. We've seen all these shows that show how people get duped. So in 2022, we need to do better. The resources are out there. Joe is just laughing because he's like probably getting flashbacks of 90 Days Fiancé or something like that. But yeah. But definitely, I would say just yeah. And regarding your friend, you know, who is sponsoring a guy, you know, just fingers crossed his intentions are pure.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead to the other question now. And again, if you're watching this, you have any questions, just go in the comment section and send us a question. And if you're new to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe to Joe's channel, and also subscribe to my channel as well as you are watching this, so you can see more questions like this. Okay, so
yeah, there's still people talking about this Shirley specific question, and I've had this conversation on a live before, and other people have talked about it. Some people are blinded by love, and they're not going to hear anything you're saying. All you can do is try to support them and try your best to help them understand what to look out for. But they need to know that you're on their side, and that it's because a lot of times they'll feel like, and I've heard this a lot, they'll feel like you're jealous of their love. So you have to be very careful how you communicate your concern, right? You just have to be careful how you communicate your concern. So just if this person is feeling like they're in love with this person and this is what they want, then you're just going to have to support them in whatever way you can. But if you can shed light, then do that. But be careful how you do it, because you don't want to lose your friendship with this person through your advice giving, right? Because, unwanted advice is criticism. And, if they're not asking you for your opinion, you have to know that they're going to be very defensive when you give it. So now when you give your opinion, you just got to tread carefully. So you know your friend better than anyone. So you have to figure out how best to communicate that to them. But I just want to make sure that that's clear, because there's a few people saying that she's probably getting scammed or whatever. That's not desirable, blah, 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 blah. She's in love is what I'm hearing or what I'm reading. And yeah, so, you know how to communicate with her to help her understand what she might be doing could be financially destructive. But I think you have to be very careful how you communicate that. So that's what I want to say on that topic, because there's a few discussions back and forth on that.
There was a comment. There was a comment that was placed here that I want to just address. The person Twerts256 said people have to realize that relationship in Africa is mostly transactional. Money in exchange for sexual access. I just want to say, I know you wrote mostly, but I strongly disagree with that. That's not always the case. I know, just like Joe knows, plenty of people who've had real, authentic, honest relationships and are still married or still engaged and are very happy in their relationship. I think just like if you go into a bowl, you're gonna see a few bad apples. You know what I'm trying to say? You just have to get rid of the bad apples, and you may be lucky, you may find the really good quality apple that's there, and there's so many there. And I think that also goes on to one of the questions that we received, which was what's your opinion on going to Africa to find a significant other? So going to Africa to find a lover, a husband, and so on. What's your response to someone who has been unlucky in love in the West, and they feel like maybe they may need to go to Africa to find their wife or their husband? What's your opinion on that?
Well, two things, but I want to address that last statement because I think that statement, there are a lot of people who believe that and agree with what he said, that most relationships are transactional. And I think where I think we have to be very clear is that it's not just Africa where relationships are transactional. We're living in a world where a lot of relationships are transactional. And what that means is that most of the time there's a growing belief amongst millennial and Gen Z women, and especially you hear it in their music, and you hear it in like all the things you just see culturally. If I'm going to be giving it up, I might as well be getting something for it, right? You hear that phrase a lot, right? And so there's definitely a lot of that culturally around the world, because now it's kind of like one culture, right? Like there's a lot of people, millennials and Gen Zs, kind of all are listening to the same music, watching the same TV shows and things like that. And so you have that a lot. And so it's prevalent, really prevalent in rap music, right? Especially women rappers, right? So you think about the City Girls, or you thinking about like Cardi B or whatever, right? That's the discussion, right? Especially because like stripper culture and things like that have become a more prominent part of society, and more people are open to the idea of it and understand it and know about people who've come from that life. And so that is a lot of how the way people think. when we're talking about the continent of Africa, we're talking about people who have a difficult time in life generating income on their own. So a lot of times they are going to be looking for that from somebody that they're with. It doesn't mean that most relationships are transactional, but it doesn't mean that even if they are, that's necessarily what am I trying to say? That's necessarily indicative of the type of person that is, right? When you're dealing with challenges with finances, people are willing to do a lot of different things, and people are going to act a lot of different ways based on the financial needs. So I'll never look at someone poorly because of the way they might be acting because they need finances. But I also understand that in some cases that could be the case. So that's my answer to that question. It's like a non-answer answer, but I think that it's not necessarily a negative thing if that is the case. But it's indicative of the world we live in right now. So anyway, that's what I'll say about that. Now the other question, sorry, I went to that long diatribe about that question. What was the other question that you previous? What was the previous question?
So the question was somebody who has been unlocking love in the West, and they're now looking, they are in the mindset that they want to go to Africa to find a wife or a husband. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't think that you should look for a geography to find what you're looking for. You should know what you want, and you should look for it in a person. Now, some of what you want might be more likely to be found in West Africa. But like, you should know what you're looking for. Don't just be going to a geography to search for something. Just like I wouldn't tell you to go look for a race to search for something. If you have specific things that you're looking for, then if you know that's what you're looking for, then maybe someone in West Africa might be the person for you. So for instance, if you're someone who is looking to date for marriage and you want to move to marriage right away, maybe that is where you go, but you need to know that you want to marry that person, not that you just want to be married, and whoever the person is, you're married, right? So you also need to make sure you're making decisions based on that. If you are a man and you're planning to move to West Africa, or you're thinking about, coming to West Africa, and you are looking for someone who might be considered traditionally feminine, who is more traditional in their lifestyle in terms of cooking and cleaning, and maybe might be more subservient, let's say, then it might make sense for you. But then that also means that you may not also get some of the other things that you might find useful, like a partner who can give you advice on a lot of different things, because they may not have experienced some of the things that you've experienced business-wise and otherwise. So, I think you just need to know what it is you're looking for, and you should look for people who have those traits. And you might find those people in West Africa, but you shouldn't be going to West Africa to search for love, because you need to know what you are looking for first in your ideal mate, and then look for that. And if that person is in West Africa, then that's maybe where you look. But it shouldn't be about the geography. It should be about what you're looking for.
I 100% agree to what you've just said, Joe. It really should be about what you're looking for. But I do understand, as Black women, as a dark-skinned woman, that some of us may sometimes feel like the dating pool is a bit more slimmer for us, because we may feel like, the Diasporian men may not find us to be as attractive as other races. So we may be pulled, or we may feel like we're being forced to go to Africa, where the men desire us a bit more in order to find a partner. But I definitely say is you have to think about this. Are you looking to move to Africa? Are you moving to stay there? Is that something that you really want? Do you feel a calling to go into Africa? And if that's what it is, go ahead and do that. But do not think that just because in Africa, yes, the men desire dark-skinned women a bit more, that necessarily you're going to have a good experience. You can still get played, you can still get lied to, you can still get married, get divorced, you can still get played for your papers and all these different things, and so on. But however, if African men is what you want a more traditional lifestyle where a man takes care of a woman, you want to be closer to your roots, then definitely go ahead and do that. If that is your why, go ahead and do that. But if your why is the fact that you feel like nobody wants you, then I would say that's a bit of a danger zone. Is just take your time a little bit more, like just like what Joe has said, and just really just work within yourself and just put yourself out there. Like one thing I always say to my friends, you know, is that no man, if you don't leave your house, no man is going to find you. He's not going to break your door and come in and be like, oh, hey, let's get in a relationship. You have to date, you have to put yourself out there. So definitely I would say that.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion going on in the comments.
There's
I don't know
so
if you want
much.
to start.
I'm just looking at all the I'm just looking at all the comments. Should we read some of the comments out loud?
Yeah, we should. I mean, I think we can go all the way back to like Admin Bentley.
Okay, let's go to Admin Bentley.
And then just start working our way down through some of them, because there's just some good conversation happening here.
Yeah, there's some good ones. So Admin Bentley said, it's just fraud. The girls just take advantage of the men, especially to the diasporians.
And then look at this the next comment too. The next comment.
He went on to say, never give any woman to any girl. Never give any money to any girl until you've met her and feel the relationship is genuine. I agree with you on that one. Definitely. What would you say, Joe?
Yeah, I agree on the second point. I think the first point, I think it's more complicated than just fraud. I think with cultural context, you understand why finances are such an important part of things. And it's not necessarily just people trying to defraud people of their money. I think if any place that is the viewpoint is when people are in the West who have access to more jobs that can pay them better, and that is how they think. I think that that way it's more like it's like what can I get out of this person? Where in West Africa, you know, there's a lot of times there's more desperation or a need for finances. So there's a different cultural context, so it's not the same. Even though I sternly say I'm not parting ways with my money, it doesn't mean I don't understand why people do it, right? It's just I think you have to just use the cultural context. I don't think it's fraud. I disagree with that. I think it's really just the cultural context is where we are as a continent, and each of the countries' GDP is just it is what it is. The average person in Sierra Leone makes like $75 a month. Yeah. Right. So when you put that in context, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, right, definitely makes sense. So TUTE, I think it's 256. I think that's how you pronounce it. Says people just have to be careful. Poverty is a serious issue in Africa, so you need to make sure the person actually loves you genuinely, especially if they know you're from abroad. I definitely agree with that. Would you have anything to say regarding that?
No, I agree. I mean, that's what I said earlier, right? You know, only time will tell. But that's, you know, look for red flags early and just take your time, right? And time will tell you what they're really there for.
100%. And then Spare Warrior says, more often than not, relationships are transactional, both here in the States and abroad from travels around the world. I agree with you on that, definitely.
Yeah. Ditto on that one.
And then we have Leela Davis, who says, enjoying the live. Thank you guys for sharing your knowledge and life experiences. Thank you, Leela, for joining us. And we just have some people agreeing with TUTE 256. Yeah, quite a few conversations going on here. And then we have TUTE again 256 that says, I literally just came back from SL 2 weeks ago, so I have up-to-date info on the dating scene over here. Oh, wow. Jojo also just returned back a couple of days ago as well.
I did.
Okay. Spare Warrior says he's looking for Black women that are more feminine. Okay. I'm not quite sure what type of woman he's come across.
Well, so this is a conversation right now. So I am a person who listens and looks at content from all over the place, and there's this world of the red pill, and there's a conversation around femininity and the idea that because there's an idea of equality and equality in the workplace, there is this discussion about women losing some of their femininity because of that. Now, I think it's just evolved. I don't think they're losing it. I think it's just changed. But this is the conversation that's happening. So when people talk about femininity, they're talking about a lot of times what you see in a traditional woman, which you find more often in West Africa, right? And so That is that. So that's kind of the general discussion now is, you know, you find people talk about Middle Eastern women in the Middle East or African women who tend to be more traditional in their viewpoints and in their lifestyles, and when it comes to marriage and it comes to being in a relationship. And so that's what you hear a lot when people are saying feminine. I think it's kind of a it's synonymous with traditional.
Okay, thank you for definitely breaking that down for me, because I was a bit confused about that comment for a bit. Okay, so we've got some love from Jasmine Johnson. Thank you for the love.
Oh, Jazz. I know Jazz from the LA days. She lives in ATL now. She just got engaged.
Congratulations to you, Jasmine, for getting engaged. And Princess Welby says, how do we send our questions? The same way how you've just written that one is how you send your questions. Just write them in the comment section and we will answer them. So again, we have a few comments that people are just replying to each other. Okay, we have Taquisha McDermott, who says, honestly, I'm ready to relinquish. How do you say that word? Relinquish, sorry, the title of independent woman. It's overrated. I'm ready to be a submissive wife. However, it's vital not to rush the dating process and get to know one another. Wow. That is very, you know what? I respect you, girl. If that's what you want, you go for it. You know, you become a submissive wife. That you know, if you want that, that is what you want, girl. You go for that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think what we're hearing is a little disagreement in Mariama's voice with that response. But I would say this. You know, I think here's the challenge that we have in this world right now is that we have the expectation of a man being traditional, but not the expectation of women being traditional. So we have it's a very challenging crossroads that we're at right now, right? Because if the man is supposed to be traditional in a lot of ways, right? Be the breadwinner, be a gentleman, et cetera, that usually was done to make up for all of the things that women don't have, right? Yeah. And so what you have is the challenge between people living in today's society wanting yesterday's level of accountability, right? And so I see this a lot with women, especially Black women, mentioning the idea of the independent woman and like relinquishing that title and moving away from that, because a lot of times they feel like that hinders the dating process, and maybe it does. You know, I think that there are some challenges there, and I don't know if we figured it out yet. I used to have these conversations a lot with my friends in the US all the time, because that's the biggest challenge you have, right? If we're talking about we want equality and we're moving towards equality, but when it comes to dating, there's the expectation of a man to do things beyond what seems equal. You know, there's some challenges there with some men and how they respond. For me, I've always been the person to say, I'm into a reciprocal relationship. I'm not asking you to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. And so if that's the case, then that means that I'm just going to need to have the finances to be able to pay for it to be done by somebody else if you're not going to do it. Because if I'm not going to do it, you're not going to do it, somebody got to be paid to do it. So, you know, when it comes to, like, let's say hanging up the TV, I don't know how to hang up a TV. I know that's traditionally a man's job. I can pay somebody to hang up that TV. But also, if it comes time to cook and you're too tired to cook because you've been working all day, that's fine.
You're okay to do it too.
I have a housekeeper that would do it because I don't want to cook. So I have a housekeeper.
Cook. You see, there you go.
So I have a housekeeper. So that's me though, but that's not everyone. So I think that that's the challenge we have now is the traditional, non-traditional, and the expectations there. And so I see that a lot in people saying that they want to relinquish the title, as stated by Takesha, of independent woman. So
yeah. And I just want to add to what Joe has said, and I don't want it to seem like I'm shading what you said to Quisha in any way, shape, or form. I am a big believer in you need to not settle and go for exactly what you want. If you want to be a housewife, you go and find a man who's willing to take care of you, because guess what? There's a man out there and he is looking for a woman that he can take care of. So you go and find that. But for me personally, I see the term submissive a little bit more differently. To me, as an independent woman who works, takes care of herself, the way I see submissive hasn't got anything to do with the physical things like cooking and cleaning, because I don't think it's possible for a working woman to be a housewife at the same time. It's just not possible. I really believe in shared roles. But when it comes to submission, to me, when I look at that word, I see as you submissive, being submissive to each other emotionally. So that's things like becoming rather than you being selfish, you become selfless. Rather than you being independent, you become dependent on each other. You do things together. You let go of all the things that you did when you were single, living by yourself, and you focus on doing things together. And you become one, and you submit to each other's emotions. Meaning, it's not just about me, how I feel, and what I want. It's about each other. So for me, when I think of the term submissive, that is what I see. Okay, Queen B said, and even some of the men are asking women for money nowadays. It's sad. What's your comment on that?
I mean, I think it goes back to the conversation we heard earlier, right? Like that is happening sometimes. You know, and I don't know which, you know, with Queen B, I don't know if you're talking about men in the US or where. But yeah, I mean, it's just the times we live in. Things are very different these days, right? So, you know, I think you just need to be prepared to live in the times that we're in, not the times of past. And so if you are, then you know that these things are going to happen. There are going to be men asking women for money. We also live in a world where, especially in when Black American women are more educated than Black American men, right? I can only speak to the United States. I don't really know what's happening in the UK and other parts of the West. Yeah. But if that's the case, they actually can be higher income earners in a lot of cases than Black men in the United States. And so in those cases, how do you deal with those gender roles or those relationship roles, right? So I think that these are all things that are now happening. And so I think you have to determine what works for you and find that in the person that you want to partner with for the rest of your life and what makes sense for you. But you also have to be realistic about the times that you're in and who you're likely to encounter. So that would be the way I would respond to that.
Okay. Now we have a very interesting comment that's been sent here. So it's from Queen Bee's Corner, and I use the word interesting because my brain just dawdled a little bit. I'm not quite sure which other word to use, so I apologize if you take that a bit offensive. She goes, please, Diasporian ladies, be careful of Sierra Leonean guys who live in Sierra Leone. Once you get into a relationship with them, there is a whole lot they will expect from you. Speaking from experience. Okay, we have someone here who's had experience dating Sierra Leonean men, and this is what they had to say. But please note, this is her personal experience. This is not an overall experience.
These views are the views of Queen B and Queen B only, not the views.
But thank you so much, Queen B, for sharing that, because it's really good that we have some people, you know, write their actual experience here. So it's really great. And I apologize that you do not have a great experience. I do hope moving forward you do find somebody who you can have a great experience with if you haven't already.
Yeah. And I would say it comes down to, though, having that conversation and checking along the way when you first meet those people, because you're going to find people like that in all parts of the world and all kinds of different people. Exactly. You definitely want to, like, the same thing when I was talking to men when dating women, it's the same thing for women. You need to know what are red flags, what questions you need to ask. You need to watch their actions, right? If that doesn't vibe with what you want, move on quickly. Right. But these are the kinds of questions and the things that you need to be looking for from the beginning. And you need to constantly be watching and looking for it, whether you're here or anywhere. But, you know, especially here, just because you're dating, it's new. You're dating a new type of person. So you might need to be extra scrupulous, if that's the word.
Definitely. Yeah. And we just had somebody that's just saying great content, definitely got to come back for the whole gem. Thank you so much for telling us that. It does help as we are sat here doing this. I appreciate that. So Princess World B says, what is you guys take on dating in Sierra Leone, or what have you guys witnessed? Joe, you go ahead and you take that, and I'll go after you.
Okay, so I talked about this a little bit at the beginning, right? So I've dated in Sierra Leone. I'm dating a Sierra Leonean currently, and
Is she a
so
local?
she's a local, yes.
Okay.
Local content, which is what I got from you and your friends. Local content. By the way, other people say that. You were not the only.
It's not just me. Other people say it too.
A lot of people say local content. Even Sierra Leoneans I've heard call themselves local content. So just to be clear, just like we're JCs, they've been called local content, right? So we're JCs, they're LCs, I guess, right? So anyway, yeah, so what has my experience been? I think the biggest thing, like I said, is just the cultural difference, right? I also just move slow, period, because I need time to get to know someone. I'm looking for all those things that I mentioned, and I have always been looking for those things, regardless of where I am. And so it takes me a long time to get to a place where I'm ready to move forward and move forward with a monogamous relationship, or at least a what I would say is an exclusive relationship, right? If in fact that's where I'm going and that's what I want to do at that time. And so if that is the case, you know, it takes me a little while to get there. Whereas minds are made up for the most part, from what I understand in Sierra Leone, from these women almost immediately. Like, especially even if you gotta think about it this way, right? Even if you're not like only solely thinking about finances, you have to think this is someone who's different from what I'm used to, someone who brings a different perspective than what I'm used to hearing, you know, speaks a different way, dresses a different way. Just all these things are different. That you can get infatuated and wrapped up in that without even knowing the person. And so what happens a lot, I think, is that's what happens when you meet a foreigner, when you're a local person here. And so I'm not saying that that's been all of my experience or my current experience, but I know that that has been some of my experience prior to meeting who I'm dating currently. And so that is something I think that you have to just be weary of, right? You need to give them time to get to really know you, and you need to give yourself time to really get to know them. So what I have witnessed is people doing the exact opposite, and then finding out that they didn't like the situation ending badly because they didn't think through, you know, they got wrapped up in a whirlwind marriage, or not even a marriage, but a whirlwind romance, right? Where it's like, you know, it's even a different experience for you as a Westerner being here, right? There's some new experiences you might be getting. You know, sometimes that might be sexually from some women I've heard. Some men, you know, might also say the same thing. Not speaking about anybody's particular specific experience, but I've heard a lot of things. I've also witnessed a lot of things, as you said, witnessed. So, you know, I think in those cases, you can get wrapped up in a whirlwind romance without actually thinking about the situation that you're in and knowing the person that you're with. And so what I've witnessed is people making that mistake, getting wrapped up, and it ending badly because they didn't even know that person, and they got to know them later when they're already deep in their feelings.
Yep.
Right. So that is one thing that I've seen, but I've also seen it go really well with people who did take the time to get to know that person. So, I mean, again, it's really all about knowing what you want, what you're looking for, and finding that in a person. And it helps if you happen to be Sierra Leonean and that person is Sierra Leonean, because culturally wise, there could be some similarities. There's no explaining like this is how my family is, because they might understand that. So I witnessed the entire spectrum. I have seen, to be honest, more bad than good, but it's not about the people of Sierra Leone. It's the choices that people are making in dating. Because I can say I've seen more bad than good in the US too. It's the same thing. It's the choices that people are making. And most of the time I would say it's for women dating men. It's the choices that they have made because they've gotten wrapped up in a situation without actually, thinking things through and really looking for flags, right? And so I think you can't just listen to what people say. You need to watch what they do, and not only watch what they
preach,
watch what they do consistently, right? So that's the main thing, right? It's not what they say, it's what they do, and it's not what they do, but what they do consistently. That is how you should determine whether or not you want to be with someone, man or woman. That's my thoughts.
Yes. And just to add a little bit to what he said in terms of what I've witnessed and what I've seen, I've also seen really bad comparisons to really good. However, one advice I give to any single person is just what Joe has says, practice caution and be in the driving seat when you are dating in Africa or in general. Just be in the driving seat. Don't let any man or woman sway you. Meaning, if your instincts, you know, that godly instincts, if you believe in God, that God has given us, if that instinct is telling you run, don't let your desperation make you keep driving. Run. Like, leave the car and let it burn. Let the car burn and run. Because I'm telling you, like I said, like in Sierra, for example, the locals, their mindset, they are in deep, some of them are in deep poverty. So sometimes they are looking at you as a ticket, sometimes they're looking at you as a way out, you know what I'm trying to say. And also at the same time, you come across diasporas who are really rich. They have, like, you come across some men in Sierra Leone, I'll speak specifically, who have so much money. Women are literally throwing themselves at them, meaning, like, one thing I noticed when I was in Sierra Leone is that the men were not going to the women. A lot of the women were going to the men. They were the ones that were going to the men, asking for their number, throwing themselves at them, and so on. So you have to think about that as well. But back to my driving seat is that if you go to Sierra Leone and love is what you're looking for, that is what you went there for, just be in the driving seat. Let nobody sway you. Really focus on your gut. And Salomon, they're good sweet talkers. They can talk. They will look at you from big. Like, as soon as they see, they'll be like, "Eh, my sister, you fine? Oh, I want marry you. You sweet oh." And in translation, it is, "You're beautiful. I want to marry. I've never seen a woman like you." Blah blah blah. They are sweet talkers. So you need to, just like what Joe says, you need to look past the words and look at the action, and vice versa with men. Men, if you meet a woman, and no matter how ugly you are, she's gonna tell you are the finest man in the world, and you're gonna believe it. You know what I'm trying to say? She's gonna make you feel like you are freaking who can I say, Trey Songs, for an example. You know what I'm trying to say? She's gonna make you feel real good. But again, look past the words and focus on the action. That's what I definitely say regarding that. I know, Joe, you're laughing regarding my car stuff.
Yeah, all of it. But like, also, there's just some funny like Creole going on in the comments now. David McCrae just joined the chat. He's usually on the lives. What's up, David? He says,
Right,
"Salon like money." Ah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to look through so we can read through it, guys.
Oh, look at this.
256 says, "You guys need to start doing matchmaking for professional Black millennial. It's hard to find a Black woman here in the UK where you live in a town with mostly white people." What's your opinion on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love to do a matchmaking service. I don't have the bandwidth to do that, but I
Joe is very busy.
Yeah, yeah. You guys don't even know the half. I talk about it every once in a while on the live, but like even more stuff is happening. We'll talk about it on my live tomorrow, but it's crazy. My days are crazy. I'm working 7 days a week. After this, I have like 4 or 5 things on my bucket, not my bucket list, my to-do list for the weekend to do still. But with that being said, I do give a lot of advice on my live. I'm 37 years old, and so I have lived 27 years. Sorry, 27 years. What am I talking about? 17 years as an adult in the outside adult world, and seeing how things go and how people live, and seeing all kinds of dating things. And I'm a person who observes and watches people, and I learn from others' mistakes. And so from that, that's taught me a lot of lessons. And so I'm not necessarily a dating expert. I'm just like an expert on people. And so what I've learned over time is how to discern and to learn what makes the most sense for you. Discern, you know, who somebody is to you based on how they act, and also to learn what it is that you want and to decide how to find that. So I'm more than happy to give advice on these lives. I don't know if I could do a matchmaking service. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah.
But I have thought about this though, and maybe this is something that could be interesting. Is I've seen a live where somebody does this in the US, but I thought about doing it here, where people can come on the live, give their social media handles, talk a little bit about themselves and what they're looking for, and then I leave it to the audience to reach out to that person, and they communicate and see if they can find love that way. I think
I like that. Okay,
So
in the comment section, comment if you'd like Joe and I to do that weekly. Me and him come together, because Joe and I have been talking. We're trying to figure out how we can work together to do at least one live every single week. And if that's something that you guys would like and you want us to focus on something, whether it's dating, whether it's just living in Africa in general, sorry, then please go ahead and let us know in the comments what type of content you want us to collaborate together on. So I'm just gonna go to the next question now, which is Princess Welby says, I find that women in Sierra Leone are very good at rotating men when they're dating. My friend, a male from the UK, was shocked to find out the girl he was dating had 2 other guys dating her. Wow.
yeah, I mean, I can respond to that, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens. I think it's not everyone. It's not all the time. It's like I said, culturally, it's just something that's beginning to happen more and more often, and it's because of what you find on the other side, right? So now women have decided that they're not going to put all their stock in one person because they're not sure he's putting his stock in her and only her. And so what you find is you do find that happening from time to time. I've definitely seen some things for sure. For sure, I've seen some things. Never necessarily participated in these things, but I've seen them in close quarters. And I will say that it happens. It's not everyone. It's not all the time, but it definitely happens. I've also not maybe fall victim to this, but I've been on the other side of this, where I was dating someone and she was dating other people. But I think the thing is that you have to keep in mind is if somebody is attractive and they have all the traits that you're looking for, they were likely dating someone before they met you. Now, they may not have been dating seriously, or they may not have known where they wanted to go with that person or other people they might have been dating, but people are going to have many suitors, right? That is going to be the case. If they have the traits that you're looking for, then that is likely that other people are looking for those same traits and also looking to date that person. So you also do have to understand that, especially women who are desirable for a larger majority of men, they are going to tend to have to look at the different suitors and make a decision, but they may not make a decision the first week of meeting you, right? They might be meeting you and other people for a little bit of time before they make that decision. Now, that looks different for every person. That doesn't mean that they're always physically intimate with everyone. It doesn't mean that they're doing it with ill intent, but it is a possibility. And I think you just need to go into every dating situation expecting that that person had a life before you and is living a current life, and they might be making a decision about you and leaving the rest behind. So it's up to you to make that determination if they're right for you, and if you can be the person that's right for them to make that decision to leave everything else behind.
Wow. Yes, I definitely agree. There's nothing I can add to that. I definitely agree with you, Joe. So Princess Roby says, can you guys save this live, please? Very interesting content here. This will be saved on both mine and Joe's Instagram. And if you're watching this and you're not already following Joe or myself, then please do hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel so you can see more lives and content just like this. Okay. So Princess
By the way,
Roby,
it's going to be on our YouTube's, not Instagram.
oh, sorry.
So
I apologize. Sorry, this is going to be on our YouTube, not Instagram. Sorry, guys. I apologize regarding that. Princess
we're going late. It's an hour and 40 minutes, by the way, guys. So this is a good conversation, but you guys got to know we're on GMT. It's 1:40. It's 10:43. So if we make mistakes or if we start getting tired, you know why. It's late.
I'm so sorry if I start making mistakes, but I'm really enjoying this live. So please stay on. Keep sending us your questions. Keep interacting with us. I'm really loving it. So Princess World B says, you guys should do more hidden gems content for us living abroad. It's nice to get inside info on what's happening there. You know, definitely Joe and I plan on to do lives frequently. We are in discussion to do lives every single week. We just want to know exactly what you guys want us to do in these lives. So it'd be really good if you can just go to the comment section, just let us know what type of lives you want us to do. Okay.
And by the way, you can look at our old content too, because we've talked about different things that we've discovered and learned and living here. Mariama spent a significant amount of time in a couple of countries. And so there's a lot of content on her channel about her experiences. I also do content. I mean, I'm living in Ghana right now, so I do content on my experience here in Ghana, my experiences in Sierra Leone. I do weekly vlogs on what my experience was like over the previous week. I do a live. So there's plenty of content already, but we are
Yes,
talking about doing more
definitely.
content as well. So make sure you go back and watch some of our other content. If you think this is good, go back and watch some of that. And the 10 things we wish we knew about going to Sierra Leone, which by the way is my second highest video right now. So definitely go and watch that video so we can get it to #1 for me.
Yes,
I love my
guys.
Sierra Leone content going up. That came from our experiences, right? That was like the
Yeah.
hidden gems. It was the 10
Yeah.
things we wish we knew, and then we did 10 more things too. So just putting that out there. There's plenty of content already.
There's so much content. Definitely go and check it out on both of our channels. Definitely. So Spare Warrior says you also have to take into account class differences, which you have to be willing to deal with. Women around the world are approaching men. I agree. That is true.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, class differences for sure. I mean, it's just something that you need to think about. I mean, yeah. I mean, class differences is a thing. I think it depends on where you see yourself and what class you see yourself in, or who you're dating. But yeah, that is going to have a bearing on how people handle dating for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finance, for sure.
So Leela says speed dating in December. Is that something you want us to do? Is that what you're trying to say?
Speed dating event in Sierra Leone in December.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I think if we have enough demand for it, it could happen. I know
It could happen.
I know the guys at chemists, who could supply the alcohol if necessary.
Yes.
I know a couple places where we could potentially do it, but I mean, we really have to know that there's a real demand for it, right? Like
100%.
we can't just say like we're gonna do it, and if there really isn't a demand for it. I know 15,000 people went to Sierra Leone this last year, which is a record for
Wow,
us.
that's amazing.
So, maybe there's a lot more diasporans going back to Sierra Leone, people getting their dual citizenship because, they did the, African ancestry and found out they're Sierra Leonean so they can get their citizenship. If you guys come, yes, we'd be more than happy to do it. I'd be more than happy. I'm not going to speak for you, Mariama, but I'd be more than happy to do it.
Definitely 100%. If you guys would want that from us, and again, if you guys want us to continue doing lives to talk about relationships, then please do let us know in the comments if you want this to be something we do frequently. And if speed dating is something that you guys want to do, you can go online and they do these polls online where people can go and vote. If we have a significant amount of people who vote that they want a speed dating event, then Joe and I will do it.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. So AKO says a Sierra Leonean in Sierra Leone and Diasporian Sierra Leonean are very different from a cultural personality. Be wise in your selection process. I agree.
Yep. Yeah, we said that for sure. We agree.
Okay, there's so many conversations going on here. I'm just trying to pick. I'm trying to pick.
Potty break. I'm sorry. I have to take a bathroom break.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and take a. I'm gonna mute you. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, guys, you have me now. Joe has to take he's gonna have to take a break because we have been here for 1 hour and 47 minutes. We are definitely enjoying this live as well. Just gonna go through. If you guys have any questions for me, so while Joe is away, I'm just gonna for those who may not know who I am, is so for my channel I focus on living in between. So I lived in Sierra Leone for 6 months. And I lived in another country as well. And now I'm back in the UK and I'm going to be going back to Sierra Leone again next month. Well, April, sorry. So my channel's focuses on living in between. You can find content of me being in Sierra Leone, in the Gambia, in the UK, and lots of conversations about giving you guys advice about moving to Africa, how it's like, the things you should be aware of, and all these different things. So if you're new here, you have not subscribed to my channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe so you can see more content like that. Okay, oh, Joe is back. Here we are. Welcome back, Joe. I've just unmuted you, by the way. So I'm just going to go back.
I wash my hands, so I'm drying my hands. So,
I'm just going to go back to some of the questions that we were asked so we can go ahead and answer them as well. And as you're watching this, please do go ahead and send us
Wait, what?
Okay, so I'm just trying to see some of the questions, and also because I was just about to read one of the questions that got sent to us directly. But Spare Warrior says, how are you able to afford living jet-setting lifestyles? I'm guessing in Africa. Joe, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So sorry, I was just reading some of the other comments and
There's
questions about.
so many comments, right?
Yeah. So I'm just catching up. So okay. How are you able to? Oh, so this question is not for me because well, let me just explain what I'm doing. So I go back and forth between Sierra Leone and Ghana. I have a job here in Ghana. I also am a consultant. I consult with a couple of companies as well, and so that allows me to be able to travel back and forth. But for me, it's 500 plus, about a $500 ticket, right? So it's not as bad as when I was coming from the US when it was like $1,300. So that's how I was able to afford being able to go back and forth. It's just not as expensive. So I've been back. I was always coming to Sierra Leone or twice a year. Now I'm just doing it from Ghana. But I'll be going like 4 times a year now. So I'm going to be going once a quarter. But it's because it's not too expensive for me. So I'm able to go back and forth. Yeah, that's why how I'm able to do it. But I think this question was more for you, since your channel is about the in between, right? So I think
Okay,
it's
how am I able to afford living in between? Okay, so I'm just gonna go a little bit into my strategy. So my goal is to, so I just need to cough. Sorry, guys. My goal is to eventually move to Africa. However, I believe in taking it in stages. I believe it's not something that you should just pack up your bag and just do. So I've done 6 to 7 months. Now my next step is to do a year, and then after a year, 2 years, and eventually make the move. So in order to do that professionally, I'm a marketer. I specialize in marketing. And so on. So being that I'm a marketer means that I can work anywhere in the world because I can do freelancing work. I can do short-term, long-term contracts. I'm able to basically work anywhere in the world. And I'm able to do so remotely. So I have the luxury of going into Africa whenever I want and coming back to the UK whenever I want. So for me, that is how I'm able to do it. And for those of you who are considering lifestyles like that, if you want to live in between, definitely do go and check my channel because I will be sharing all the tips so you are able to do that. I've already shared some content on that already, so you can find that. But it's very much possible for you to live a luxury lifestyle in Africa. I'll be honest with you, for some of you who may have never been to Africa, there are some people in Africa who are living much more richer lifestyle than you could ever think of, living very luxury grand lives. And if you are someone who you're not quite ready to make the permanent move to Africa, I would advise living in between and just separating your year, spending a few months in the continent and a few months back in the West. So definitely, some of our parents have been doing this for many years, so it's not something that's necessarily new. So I definitely say, if you're considering that, go and check out my channel so you can see some advice on how you can do that. Really, really, really great question as well. All right, so I'm just going to go to some of the questions that we have here. So we are possibly going to start rounding up because there's not much questions in the comment section now. However, we still do have questions that was personally sent to us, so we're just going to answer them. Okay.
Pro Woman just said she subbed to your IG. I'm just looking through some of them. There's a lot going on. So KB says, I wish we had more panelists with opposing views on dating to make it more interesting, because it seems you two literally have the same views on dating. Yeah, we do have a lot of the same views. But you know what? That brings up a good point. Maybe it does make sense to, like, when we do more content like this, to bring in other people. I know some people who have some very interesting viewpoints. So maybe we can bring more people in.
Yeah, definitely. I agree what you're saying if you want opposing views. But I think one thing about Joe and I is that we are very realistic, in the sense that we are believers that you can't have a strong belief on one thing just because you've had that experience. We've been around diasporians and locals, so we can give you both perspectives. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So we can't just speak on a diasporian. because for example, we've seen locals marry diasporians or get engaged to diasporians, and they're still together now 3-4 years and so on. So we have to be realistic in our responses, because it would be very unfair if we had a stronger belief towards one thing because that's our personal experience. And I think with anything you talk about, you have to give a general view and also give a personal view. So if you look, Joe and I are going back and forth, and we are explaining things from a personal perspective and also from a sense of what we've witnessed. So yeah. But definitely,
sorry, go ahead.
But definitely, and like I said, this is our first live that we're doing together, and we're after this, we're gonna figure out how we're gonna conduct our lives moving forward and so on. But definitely do let us know in the comments what you'd like from our lives going forward. But yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and KB, I would also like to know what viewpoint are you looking to hear from, right? So like, we talked about a broad range of topics today, and we talked about how we see them, but also what we've seen in our personal experiences. So if there's anything in particular you'd like to hear a viewpoint of, so I don't know if you're thinking like red pill, which is like a whole section of the internet of people who believe certain things, or what exactly are you looking for? So we know that we're offering that as another opposing, let's say opposing viewpoint, because that might be something that might be helpful. And Spirit Warriors says no content about Sierra Leoneans when compared to Ghana and other countries. Okay, interesting. Okay, there's some more comments up there too. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to have a look, but I'm trying to see what the questions are. Where
they're just comments, mostly not questions.
Okay, so let's just do the questions we have for now.
Yeah,
and if you want to ask us a question, just put the question there, but it's a bit more easier for me to find it, definitely. But yeah, so going back to our questions that got sent to us personally, so I'm just going to read them out to you. Okay, so one of the questions was talking about approach to finances and family obligations. So I think that they may be talking about the culture of family, of how family is like in Africa, and also how the family's approach is to finances. Like, I feel like we kind of have dabbled into that, but we can definitely go further into that. But you can go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, look, remittance is something that's discussed pretty frequently, right? And the remittances back to Africa is much higher than anywhere in the world, even in China, even in India, where they have large populations in other countries. Well, their countries, Africa is a continent, but still, I mean, the remittance to Africa is huge. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people escape Africa, or at least they think they are, to go to the States or go into the West to get a better lifestyle, to send money back home. And so once you start coming back home to Sierra Leone and you start indoctrinating yourself and start meeting more of your family, there are going to be some expectations that you help people out financially. That is part of the process in a lot of ways, if you have family in West Africa. So I think you just do need to be prepared for that to potentially be the something that happens. And then also as it pertains to your significant other, as a man, whoever you're dating, and then if you end up getting married, you know, there may be, especially if she's local, there may be the expectation that you help her family as well. And so, like for instance, my cousin just got married, and he is not only is he paying for an apartment for his wife, but he needs to get like a 3-bedroom because he needs to get an apartment for his wife, his mother, his wife, her mother, her sister, right?
Wow.
They're all going to need somewhere to live, right? So he needs to have like a 2 or 3 bedroom for them in Sierra Leone while because he's not there. He's in the US and she's in Sierra Leone. So that I mean, that can happen, right? And so I think that that's something you also need to just be aware of. But, you know, obviously, if you've made the decision to marry someone, then you've already decided that you're willing to be able to take on that, right? Because that's not something that just gets popped up out of nowhere. You'll know about it along the way, that's something that's needed and that's you're going to be required to do. So, so yeah, I mean, that's something that can happen and you just need to be prepared and aware.
Definitely. That's definitely what I'll add. And also, as we're about to wrap up, I'll probably say about 5-10 more minutes, Joe.
Sure.
If you guys have any questions, please do send it in the comment section. And again, if you're new to both of our channels, do go ahead and click on the subscribe button. We have so many content just like this on our channels, talking about Africa and the diasporian experience and so on. There's so much content we have there. Regarding just adding on to what Joe has said, definitely is the family structure is completely different. Sometimes financially, it's not you just taking care of the woman, is you also taking care of the family as well. So you are gonna feel that bit of a a bit of a pull, pulling you from different sides in terms of your obligations as a man sometimes. However, again, this is not something that's forced. It's your choice. Do you want that? Is that what you want in long term? If you don't, then just cut it off, really. Pro woman Jay says, what is a JC?
So it's a just come, like just come. So like you just came to Sierra Leone. So it has a negative and a positive connotation to it, right? So like my driver slash mechanic slash like does everything for me, my caretaker on my property, I went with him to his garage and he's like, this is not me, JC, right? He was excited to have me there. But then some people are like, the JCs, right? Because like it all depends on the person and the context for which they're discussing it. It can be a positive or a negative thing, but really what it means is just come. It's us from the diaspora coming to Sierra Leone who haven't been living there for extended periods of time or really are not really ingrained in the culture, who may not know where everything is, may not speak Creole so well. It's just people who just come. And in Nigeria, they have a Johnny Just Come. So it's JJC. So like, different countries have their own version of it. I can't remember what they call it in Ghana. I completely forgot. But yeah, they have their own version of it here too. So like I said, it's a negative and a positive connotation. Depends on who's speaking about it and what context.
Okay. And for you, what are some of the things that a diasporan coming into Ghana or Syria, and what are the main things you would say for them to look out for when it comes to dating?
Yeah, I mean, again, it just comes back to taking your time to get to know a person, right? And that's the most important thing. I think also too, asking questions about their culture and their expectations, right? Like, that is what a date is for, right? Like it's an interview. So like, I think most people go on dates and they don't talk, I don't know what they talk about, Netflix shows and stuff like that. They like to watch on TV. No, you need to know the person you're sitting across from if you're about to spend some significant time with them. You need to know about their culture, what they believe in terms of religion, as you get further down the line, if they want children, if they want marriage, how soon they want children, how soon they want marriage, what kind of marriage, where they want to get married, how many children. These are questions, maybe not in the first date, whatever. Those kinds of questions, marriage and children and stuff can maybe happen second date, whatever. But like you want to get to know that over time because you want to know where they stand, right? So that there are no surprises, right? So I would say that that's the first thing is get to know that person. Also, don't make assumptions based on anything we've talked about because everybody is their own individual. I think you should use this discussion and many of these discussions as something that guides you and something to just keep in mind but you need to talk to someone and understand who they are, meet them where they are, right? Not everybody meets all of the, let's say the stereotypes that you would expect of people from these countries. And so you just need to get to know them for who they are. So those are things. Oh, and you're not going to change people. Most people are set in their ways unless they want to change and they see it as something that's going to be positive for them and they're actively working on it. So don't try to change someone because you like them and you want them to be a certain way for you. Because it's likely that they'll go back to their old ways and their old habits after some time, even if they made those changes. So, they have to want to change. And so you just need to make sure that if you want them to make some changes, specific habits or whatever, they're going to have to want to change. So if they're a person who has an attitude, who takes out their frustrations on life on the people around them, that's not likely to change. And so you got to decide, do you want to be with a person who does that? I learned that the hard way, not with who I am with currently, but in previous dating experiences. So I think those are the bits of advice that I would give to someone who's planning to move here. Yeah, that'll be what I would say.
For me, what I would say, add on to what Joe has said, is definitely come here open-minded. Don't come here closed-minded, expecting it's going to be like coming to America, where you're going to meet a prince and get married, and then there you go, you lived a wonderful life. Definitely come here expecting that you are going to meet players. You're going to meet people who are going to try to hustle you. You're going to meet people who are going to use the word love in order to get their own personal gain. Come here, and as I mentioned, go back to the driving seat example. Be the driver in the driving seat. Control where the relationship or discussion is going, and decide if that's for you or not. Don't come here thinking, oh, I'm coming to Africa, the men are going to be easy for me to control, or the women are going to fall down to my foot, and when I say yes, they're going to jump. No. I'm trying to say, you are dating, in some cases, the same style of dating you may have experienced in the West, you might experience here. The only difference is, be aware that here there's lots of tradition, there's lots of tribal beliefs. So at the same time, you need to be very open-minded and be ready and be flexible to change maybe your lifestyle, your ideals, or your thoughts for love, if that's what you want. Okay, so then the next one would be is a positive one. What is the good things that you've experienced about dating in Africa?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I found things that I did not know that I wanted, right?
Wow.
I did not know were on my checklist of things that I wanted. I mean, that's why I'm dating, a local Sierra Leonean, because I did not expect to be dating a local. I expected to be maybe dating a diasporan. And so I think where I discovered where I hadn't experienced this before, to be very careful how I phrase this. There were just certain things that that I hadn't experienced before to this extent, put it this way. So like, after my second date, I mentioned that I'm vegan and like what I eat for breakfast. And it sounded crazy to her, sounded really crazy to her. But then that day, 2 hours later, she shows up where I am with a giant platter of like watermelon, mango, apples, bananas. And I also eat boiled plantains. I like boiled plantains. I try not to fry them. And so she also had boiled plantains too, a giant platter. And every day she came with food that was vegan friendly after that. And I was like, dang, man. Like I didn't know that I wanted that. But once I got it, it was like, so I was surprised by that. That wasn't an expectation of mine. That's not something that I was looking for on my checklist. But, she started checking off things on my list that I did not expect. So I would say that. Also, I think, too, I was also forced to be a little bit more understanding of cultural differences. I think that because previously, those who I disagreed with in terms of how fast we should be moving, I disagreed with them because of things that they did. Once I realized I wanted to be with her more long term, some of those cultural differences still remained.
Yeah.
And so it forced me to have to realize that, look, this is still how she wants to be. This is how she wants to move. And I have to learn to respect that. And even though I'm different and I'm not moving at that speed, I have to understand that, it's strange for her that I don't move at that speed. And it's strange for her friends who are giving her advice about dating me, that's weird. And I had to be able to understand that and learn that. And so I think for me, that was probably, that was really good for me because I needed that lesson, right? And so that was what I would say, is that I was getting things that were unexpected, that I did not know that I wanted. And then also I learned some lessons along the way. So that would be some of the things that I would say that were good about dating.
That's amazing. And I think that's a really great way for us to close this live. There's not much questions anymore, and we've gone through all the questions that were sent to us as well. I just want to say a big thank you to you, Joe, for joining us, for our coming together for us to do this. I've had so much fun. I've learned so much, and you guys in the comment section have kept us laughing. You all have been interacting, and that is amazing. And if you don't know already, my name is Mariama Forbes. I create content that focuses on living in between. I believe that you can live in the West and live in Africa, and you can still maintain the luxury lifestyle until you are ready to do that. And Joe and I will be having more lives like this. We've already created content on our channels where we've talked about 10 things to know before you move to Africa. So we've done quite a few collaborations. You can find this on both of our channels. And if you're not already a subscriber to our channels, go ahead and subscribe, and pass it on to you, Joe. Is anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would just say, once we close out this live, you guys can still keep the comments and conversation going in the comments, right? So this will, like Mariama said, it's going to be living on our channels. So you can just, write, the replay, go ahead and write in the comments there, especially if there's some questions or comments that you wanted to get out that we're not able to address. Make sure you do it. Thanks, David, by the way. We are trying. We're trying here. Yes. Yeah, so that would be what I would say. And yeah, and also, yes, definitely subscribe to both of our channels. Our names are on the screen, not right now, but they will be once I think but yeah, our names are on the screen. So Mariama Forbes is easy to find. Mariama and Forbes, like the magazine. Mine is Authentic African. Subscribe to our channels, and when you subscribe, make sure you when you hit the notification bell, hit all. It gives you an option to hit all. Make sure you hit all so that every time we put out new content, you get notified that content is coming out. If you hit the other one, you may not be notified and you're going to miss some stuff. So if you found this interesting, make sure you share it with your friends too. Anybody who's planning to move here, date here, even visit, this kind of information is important for them. So I'm always going to implore you guys to make sure you share it with anybody you know to help educate them.
100%. Great. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been and honestly, I've had so much fun, and I think like just interacting with you guys has been the most exciting thing. But you can continue to comment. This live is going to be available for you guys to watch, to rewatch, and share with your family and friends. So thank you all so much for watching, and Joe and I will be back again with more lives. Do leave a comment and let us know what type of lives you'd want, what you want us to talk about, and so on. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and take care. Have a great Sunday and a great rest of the week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.